Okay, perfect.
All right, we are going to record this. So welcome everybody to the IoT meetup. We are very excited today to actually have Tazio Grivetti. He leads the IoT Coffee and Technology, which happens every single Friday at Caterpillar. So talking about new technology. And I've gotten several of those, both, while I was at Caterpillar, great innovative ideas that come in, and I always look forward to them every Friday at 7 a.m. I also want to thank Chris Setti, who is a Greater Peoria Economic Development Center. I think he's the lead of that, for actually sponsoring the food tonight, and for Andrew for letting us have it here at the Nest. So thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tazio. He can introduce himself much better than I can. So welcome, and Tazio, take it away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. So it's great to be here. As Shannon mentioned, I've got a whole slide of kind of explains what I've been doing, for the past 25 years at Caterpillar. So I'll get to that. I'm going to share my screen. So let me get the presentation up here. Share button. All right. Presentation mode. There we go. All right. So I'm going to talk about innovation in large organizations, obviously, because I'm from a very large organization. When I tell the startups that we have on our Friday Coffee Talk, yeah, we got 100,000 people. These are companies with 10. They're always a little bit taken aback by that, and they say, well, how many people are going to be on your Friday Coffee Talk? Well, it could be 200, 250. That's also sort of exciting because it's a big audience, and in a way you never know who's going to be there. It could be anybody from across CAT. We've got 3,000 people on the invite. Every one of those people asked to be on it. Nobody said, hey, put my 20 people in my department on the invite. It didn't grow like that. It grew organically. So anyway, I'm going to get to all that. My little caveat here on the bottom, I'm not speaking for Caterpillar tonight. I didn't wear my cat shirt, but I'm speaking about the things I've learned, at Caterpillar, and especially about things that we did for a big company to try to learn about innovation and how to promote it and sort of grow it from the ground up. So, been at CAT 23 years. Currently, my title is Emerging Technology Program Leader. Now, emerging technology is a thing that actually is very hard to do, because if you're doing something that's emerging, kind of by definition, it's not something you're doing today, right? And the hardest thing to do at a big company is something you're not doing today. I can do more of the same all day long and get a program going, that's got minimal change, but to do something totally new, super hard. So. Where I started at CAT, okay, so this is back in 1997. I was writing how to fix the machines, right? Fixing the machines manuals, doing EPG, which is electric power generation, and a whole bunch of acronyms are on the slide right now. That's the electronic modular control panel, the programmable relay control module, and then so on. My favorite one is the DVRs. Okay, this is a long time ago. That's not a digital video recorder. That's a digital voltage regulator. And then all the controls for the machines, the joystick controls, transmission controls, etc. So a lot of techie stuff there when you have to tell people how to fix something. A lot of fun doing that. I moved from there to Tier 4. Now, when I say Tier 4 to people who aren't in the engine business, well, what is that? What's Tier 4? That's just stricter and stricter and stricter emissions, right? Cars are always having, sort of new emissions requirements put on. Heavy machinery is the same way. And so Tier 4 was a big one. That's where, we took the emissions down to such a small level that a new machine could literally pass the white glove test. So you put the white glove on and you put it inside the smokestack, and all you're getting is wet, right? There was no soot in there. So Tier 4 was a big thing. We redid all the intake and exhaust for all the engines and all the machines. It was a crazy time, but moved from there to electric power division. I was a master black belt, which, again, a reminder, it's not kung fu of any sort. That was quality and that sort of thing. Then I was an innovation manager. I was the first one at CAT because the electric power division was sort of the most forward thinking, and I think so anyway, because they hired me to be the innovation manager. Then I went from there to innovation viability manager for the company. And that lasted a few years. And as part of that, top 10 INF. So an INF stands for invention notification form. That means you've invented something and you have to give it to a lawyer to then go and see, well, is this patentable or did somebody else already have it, and that sort of thing. So when you're doing innovation, like sort of every day, lots of ideas come up and you send them to the lawyers, right? So I had that sort of honor, I guess, that I had a lot of them. Lastly, just odds and ends, I'm an aircraft pilot, ATP, that's airline transport pilot. That was my career before CAT. And why did you go from there, flying a plane to flying a desk? That's because of Gino, Maria, Angelina, Giorgio, and Marco. All my children, I didn't want to be gone all the time when they were little. So left the flying behind and never went back. And classic car rebuilder. And because I've always had a junky old house that I had to fix up, amateur carpenter, plumber, electrician, whatever it needed. And the last one, I come from the smallest town in the smallest county in Illinois. So anybody guess what's the smallest county in Illinois?
Sandusky is in Alexander County.
No, it's Putnam County, which is right up the river from here. If you take the Illinois River north, where the river hangs right, that's Putnam County. And the smallest town there is called Standard. Now there's smaller towns, but in the smallest county, that's the smallest town. So it sort of sounds better when I say that.
Putnam County used to be one of the largest counties.
It was. It went all the way to Chicago. Yeah. Yeah. So population 250. So yeah. Whenever I ask somebody, are you from a small town? And they say, oh yeah. How small is small? 10,000. No, that's a big city. All right. So innovation in large organizations. How can you encourage innovation, a mindset, right? And how can you do it from the ground up? You can do it from the top down, but I've found over all these years that it's better if you kind of bubble it up from the bottom. So what did we try to do this? Adobe Kickbox, I'm going to talk about. Before we get to the Friday coffee, which I've mentioned, we've had over 300 Friday coffee and disruptive technology talks at CAT since 2014. In fact, tomorrow is the 302nd. 302. It's 302. 302. That's right. So, and why does that keep going? I'll get into that. And it's almost always outsiders that we have on, right? We bring them in, and I'll explain why we do that and why it's compelling. And then some of the innovation techniques and methods that we learned over the years, and then a couple other final thoughts. So to get into it, if anybody has any questions or comments, just feel free to fire away. Adobe Kickbox. This is obviously not CAT. Adobe, that's the people that make PDF, right? Adobe Photoshop and Reader and all those things. They came up with this program. So why did they come up with an innovation program? You think this is a software company, right? They've got innovation spewing everywhere, right? Actually, no. They got to be about 30 years old, which it's like dog years, right? In the software world, 30 years is ancient. And they felt themselves getting stale and they needed more innovation. So they said, well, how can we spur innovation at Adobe? And they tried everything. They tried giving lots of money to a group to go and wow us, here, unlimited budget. They tried getting ideas from all the employees, getting ideas from their executive board, from researchers, from leaders across the company. And okay, we got lots of ideas. Well, how do we decide which ones are going to be the winners? They tried, voting and experts making the decision and executives making the decision. Nothing was really consistent, right, in making innovation kind of happen. So the one thing they never tried was to actually not pick them, not make the decision, but just let people try. Okay, so every other method assumed that somebody's going to be able to pick the winners. And they found that don't even try. We're going to let Kickbox in this program sort of let the winners prove themselves. So how do you do that? How do you decide who to give money to? All right. What they did is they put everything in a box. That's why they call it the Kickbox. In there was sort of the recipe, the materials that you need, right, to investigate an idea and determine if it's going to be, something that's worth pursuing or not, right? And it was designed to overcome these objections. People thinking, I don't think they mean me, right? They don't mean me to go out and investigate an idea. Actually, they do mean you, everybody, anybody. That's why we're giving you the box with the materials in it, and we're going to put you through a class. Anybody who wants to sign up at Adobe could sign up for this. Usually, you don't think my idea is a high priority. Or my manager won't think it's a high priority. They won't give me time to work on it. Again, they overcame that by saying, anybody who wants to sign up for this, go right ahead. They had kind of that support from the top. I don't have enough time. What they found is when you give people the chance, they're putting in after hours time to work on their thing. So it wound up not being an issue. And then I don't have enough money to innovate. What they did is through this methodology, which I'm going to show, you don't need a lot of money to investigate an idea and prove that it's going to be good or bad. And lastly, I'm not sure what the company needs innovated. Again, nobody cares. It's your idea. You prove it yourself if you think if you can find that it's going to be good or bad, right? So what's in the box addresses these objections. So there's a math formula behind this, right? For Adobe, if I have one of those ideas that people come up with pay off, right? And it pays off in a big way, millions of dollars, that pays not just for the whole program, right? But makes money on top of that. So that's sort of the economic principle behind it. Lots of seeds, and if a couple of those grow, then it paid for everything. So what are we looking for in terms of innovation? It could be any of these types. So the types are incremental, which we do that all the time where I work, right? We make the next year's product a little better than last year's product. Car companies do the same thing. And for Adobe, that meant something that's going to grow at 2x. That was the funniest part to me, right? I'm happy with 10%, right? They wanted 2x, but that's software way of thinking. And then there's sustaining innovation, so new products in an existing line. So like if I were to put it in like a Ford context, right? I've got lots of SUVs already. Well, I'm going to add the Bronco, right? It's another SUV, but it's kind of in the existing product line, and something like that, new product can give me 5x growth if you're a software company. Lastly, there's disruptive, so something totally new, which is the hardest one to do, obviously, and that can give you massive growth, 100x growth. So any idea that falls in any of those categories is perfectly good. All right. So what's in the box besides the money? I didn't mention the money, did I? You get the box, you get a credit card in there with a zero balance. It's not preloaded, but it's got $1,000 limit, and you can just go and get whatever you need. So that's the part that kaboom, right, blows people's minds, and we did it at CAT. We actually it was the hardest part, getting approval to hand out to these participants that signed up for the class. Here's your box, here's the materials that are in it, and there's this magic pro card in there that you can go to Amazon or Walmart, you can go wherever you need something, just go get it. So what are you thinking might have happened with that?
From the first people with the card or the people that had to approve it?
People have to approve what they buy. No, you don't. There's no approval. I'll get to that in a moment. But what do you think might have happened if you give people sort of unlimited power to charge up to $1,000, no strings attached to do it?
People are very careful not to get in trouble.
All right, so we've got people are fearful not to get in trouble, right? Some people maxed it out. Okay. Spend it on things that have nothing to do with the project. Do you have one?
The opposite of all of those. They were frugal with it and used it wisely.
All right. I don't know if you could hear that online, but they were frugal with it and used it wisely. So one of the caveats or sort of the requirements of accounting was that somebody has to actually look at the charges and make sure that the company's not getting, swindled, right? So that was me. I got to look at every charge from every card, and I put 400 people through this. And I can only think of 2 instances where I looked at it and was like, they did what? Like what, you went where and bought what? It was almost perfect, good stewards of the money, right? And I have a slide where I'll show you like how much was spent kind of by who. So no names, just sort of categories. But anyway, I'll get to that. So you get the card, and you get this curriculum that I'm going to page through. So it's a program with 6 levels, and I've got a slide for each one. And so I would have a 2-day class where I would teach people this method. Okay, so the first one is Inception, and it's all about your motivation. Why are you here in this class? Why did you sign up? What is your idea? And why do you want to do this? And so we would actually make people write it down, and you didn't have to share it if you didn't want to, but write it down. Now, why would you have them to write it down? It's a psychological thing. I've written it down. It's real now, right? I've written down on a piece of paper. It's part of the paperwork that you get in the box. It kind of makes it a little more concrete. Level 2 is ideate. All right, and you think, well, why would I ideate? Why would I think of ideas? I came here with an idea, and that's fine. But we take the idea and we think about it some more, and you talk to more people, and you kind of refine the idea, and well, see how much more creative you can get when you're in the class with other creative people, and you know, they're sort of encouraging you, as opposed to you keeping it secret and you're afraid to talk about it with, you know, your coworkers, lest they tell you that, you know, your idea stinks. All right, so the next one is improve, and here's where we would specifically go through some tools, you know, scorecards, business model canvas, various checklists, all to sort of drive constructive feedback and help the participant make their idea better and better and better. Next one is investigate. So I got two phrases here: validate the problem, validate the solution. So validate the problem. Does that seem obvious that you have to validate the problem is real? A lot of people skip that step, right? I think there's a problem, but what's more important is, do a lot of other people think there's a problem that I can solve, that, you know, they'll pay me to actually go out and fix this. So if I can validate that the problem really exists for more than just me, then I can validate the solution. And by talking to those people who have the problem and validate that what I think is maybe a good idea to fix this or alleviate it, you know, they think it makes sense too. So investigate's all about talking to other people and investigating, you know, your idea versus, you know, their perception of the problem. So iterate means basically do level 4 again, right? You take their feedback, you tweak whatever, you know, your solution is, you go back out, you show it to them again, maybe it's the same people, maybe new people, you take their, you can do this loop between 4 and 5 over and over and over as many times as you want until you run out of money, which not many people did. And once you've basically validated that, okay, I think I've got a winner here, then you move on to the last one, which is infiltrate. And there's an Adobe acronym there, stop playing hippo. That's highest paid person's opinion. You don't just go to somebody at the top. You bring the experimental data and you kind of prove out, you know, this is what I discovered. So what percentage of ideas do you think through Adobe actually made it to level 6, or, you know, it's kind of the end? Throw a number out there.
80%.
80?
Yeah.
4.
84.
No,
1%.
4 is closer than 80. It's actually less than 10%.
Wow.
Yes.
Was there some context to the type of innovations, like the product process or things that are domain to Adobe, or could it be anything?
So for Adobe, it was mainly software, right? Software related, their sort of products. But when we did this, and other people have done it, there is no categories, no stipulation of, you know, it's got to be in a certain area. It can be anywhere. And of the 400 plus people that signed up, they came from all over. Accountants, you know, marketing people on the shop floor. We went to Reman, you know, in Mississippi, and had a full class of people there that had ideas. Which, kind of a funny story. One of the people who I was like, you bought what? He bought this special paint that nothing sticks to. And he coated the underside of his entire 4-wheel drive truck with this special paint.
How did it stick?
And he drove it through the mud, you know, went mudding with it, and the mud wouldn't stick. But his point was, he was showing to the Reman people that we could maybe coat some of our Reman products with this paint, and you don't have to trust me, look at my truck. right? Look, I ran it through the mud bog and look how clean it is and look how long it lasts because I ran it through the mud bog for all summer, right? So great example of, initially you think you coated your shocks and your undercarriage and your springs and the frame with this paint, and your truck looks great, by the way. But it was actually, in my opinion, money well spent, right? Anyway, so less than 10% got to this point. Now, is that a bad thing? Absolutely not. The fact that you had, a class of 30 people go through it, investigate 30 ideas, 27 of them spent almost no money and realized that this is not something worth doing, right? And then the 3 that did, fine, right? I just possibly saved the company lots of money, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, right? By deciding not to do something. So any project that stops before level 6 is generally, in my opinion, a huge win. So when you get to level 6, we basically package what they've done into a format and help present it up, to whoever needs to see it. So again, over 400 people through. Getting the approval to do the procurement cards was the hardest part, the biggest obstacle, and I went through those charges. The Kickbox participants seem to be inherently entrepreneurial minded, right? That's why they signed up. But universally, they all found the class very valuable, like highest feedback scores of like any class in the company afterward. And the average spend was not $1,000, it was $160 when you average out everything we spent over 400 people. So I said I have a chart, I do. So this chart, it says and on to 400 at the bottom. This chart is very, very, very wide, right? I just zoomed in to the point at which it went from 1,000 down to, basically nothing. And a lot of people didn't spend anything. A lot of people, down here, when number 115, they bought a book and that was it, right? Learn how to do something. Yeah.
How large are these teams on average?
It's a one-person team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you end up spending about $40,000 to create a culture of innovation.
Yes. And one of my first slides was
Whether you got
the
any
Kickbox isn't an innovation program, it's an innovator program.
That's what I'm saying.
For $40,000, I trained 400 people and they all got the experience of doing this and taking a project as far as they could take it. And they decided when to quit.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So did you get feedback from the people who went through that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody filled out a feedback form and what did they like about it? What didn't they like? How can we improve it? Really good feedback, kind of comprehensive.
Tazio, did anybody make money? I mean, like,
Yeah, so I have for internal, I have a whole presentation of great projects and what happened to them, which I'm not showing. But yes, some people made great projects, and I've added 2 more bullets here. 2 or maybe 3 people wasted the dollars, and the maybe one was the truck guy. And the bottom line, it's an expensive way to empower people to investigate their own ideas and prove to themselves and then to the company whether it's worth doing. So, but back up to this, the people who spent all the money, those were engineers that bought parts. They had to buy some technical pieces of whatever to do something. And I did have 2 groups where people got together and they pooled their money and bought something that cost $3,000, and then they went and did their project on it. But so kudos to them, very good, very clever. It's fine.
Return, you can't tell us the projects, and that's okay, I get it. But can you tell us, like, okay, it costs $40,000, but in return, Caterpillar made anything?
I'll give you one example. Down in one of our logistics facilities, they came up with a hoist system that they didn't have already, and it reduced injuries, and they had a whole map. They used to have to take parts to where they had the hoist. They mounted the hoist on the forklift, a special kind they had to go buy. And they mapped out how many miles of driving the fork truck around that they saved over the course of a typical week, and then of course extrapolated that out to a year, and it was a ton of money. So, and that was just somebody's idea of, dang it, why do I always have to get this part, drive it to where this hoist is to unload it, when I can just bring the hoist with me? Well, it's bolted to the wall, so you can't. Well,
So,
they did it.
a piggyback question was how much did that innovation cost versus how much it saved?
I don't, just going off memory, and this is, over just a year, right? It probably paid off 100x what it cost.
Participants with ideas outside their realm of professional expertise.
Yes.
So what do those people look?
What we try to do, and I, all the way at the beginning, there's a thing we do called the business card exchange, in effect, but it's what do you know? What are your hobbies? What do you know that I don't know that you know, right? And you list it all out, and we exchange all that, and then in our Kickbox community, which is internal, it's on Yammer, we would kind of post that. And the point is, you ask any of these 400 people for help, they'll help you, right? Because you're a fellow Kickbox participant, but go find somebody who knows what you don't and get free advice. And so that's what people would do. All right, so here. All right, so we tried Kickbox and ask, is it still going on today? No, it's not. And that's because somebody still has to come up with $40,000 or whatever it is, right, to put more people through. And through various restructurings, the people that greenlit it in the first place, they're all gone, retired. And so it's not completely canceled, but it's on hiatus, right, until we decide, hey, we're going to do it again. So, but having trained 400 people, that's a huge impact for the company. And a lot of people in their feedback said, this is, not to brag, this is the most valuable class I ever took, because it taught me how to take an idea and run it through a process that's not hard, but it does get results and it reinforced to people that you can learn a lot and spend very, very little.
I may have missed it. I'm sorry. What was the amount of time over what duration that this class took place?
The pro card, the class is 2 days. The procurement card was good for 12 months. Yeah. After 12 months, it gets shut off. Although if you asked me for a 30-day extension, I always granted it. Because I wanted to see them succeed, and if you need something, go ahead. So they kind of had a year, right, to do it, and I would send them reminders. It's been 6 months, it's been 9, urge them on a little bit, but they can take as long as they wanted, really. Okay, so Kickbox, again, anybody can go to Adobe and they can download the whole program. It's free to take or download from their website. And part of the spirit of it is, if you make any modifications, send it back to Adobe, right? So we did that, and I modified. I added a lot of things and sent it all to them. And then somebody pointed out to me once that the Adobe VP was using one of my slides in his presentation up at some tech conference. And it's the one of my thumb holding up my procurement card. And you can see half my name on there. And I'm like, yeah, this thumb is, made it on the big screen. So, we shared it back, and I don't know if they tweaked the program. I haven't downloaded it lately, but he did use my slide. So, all right.
Were there a lot of questions? Were there a lot of questions around, like, I thought we were signing up for kickboxing classes? Something like that?
No. But when I tell people I teach a kickbox class at CAT, if they're not in, they always assume it's like an after work thing or whatever, and that we're actually kicking bags.
You said that before or after you tell me you're a black belt?
Yeah, I'm a master black belt. I teach a kickbox class. Makes perfect sense.
I didn't know if you were here to sell us on this, but I'm.
Yeah. No, I'm not here. I'm
So.
not here to sell it.
No, I'm just gonna, if I come up with $100,000 and give you the framework, which is social impact challenge related stuff for this community, would you be able to move this forward?
Oh, teach the class to a group of, yeah, sure. Yeah, I enjoy teaching the class. It's always a lot of fun.
How many classes did you take? How many flights were there?
Well, 400, and there was about 20 per class, 10 to 20. So whatever that math works out to, yeah, a lot, a couple of years worth.
Was it only one cohort for that 1 year?
It was several years that we did.
How many years?
Every month. We did a class every month.
Oh, okay.
Until,
So,
and
it's
if there was-
rolling every 12, how many, so if you did one class every month, what would that have been like? How long did it extend?
Yeah, so if we did one a month and it was 10 people, right? That was 120, right? But some classes were bigger than that. Some were 20 people. So yeah, about 2.5, 3 years worth of classes.
Shannon mentioned that you teach at Bradley. What class do you teach?
So my class, which isn't offered at present, is rapid prototyping. And I do use some Kickbox sort of concepts in there, because when you say rapid prototyping to people, they assume you're going to get a 3D printer and you're going to make something, you're going to go to the machine shop, you're going to do it. And when you're done, I've got something that I can say, here, go try it out, right? But that's you'll get there eventually. But rapid prototyping is Kickbox principle. For how little money can I get something that will get me feedback? You know?
It's like a drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's low fidelity prototypes. So how am I doing on time? I
You're
tend to-
good.
I'm good. All right. So I've got a lot more slides.
Oh,
You go
perfect.
right ahead.
Okay.
Don't
All right.
worry about time.
We don't have
right.
like a meeting after this.
Yeah.
So this was a way, Kickbox was a way to kind of give people the opportunity to try it, and kind of build innovation from the ground up. So how else can we provide inspiration? So that leads me to the Friday Coffee Talks, which is a weekly infusion of how outsiders are acting. Right, and there's my logo that I made, coffee cup. So every Friday morning, unless it's a holiday weekend, from 7 to 8. And it was begun by Steve Pierce. Give him the credit. He's a Bradley guy right now. Teaches a couple classes there. He started it in 2014, and I was the wingman. I was the backup. If he was on vacation, I would run it for him. And he goes on a lot of vacations. So, the big difference between him and me is I've never not done Friday coffee. Even if I was on vacation, I still did it. So I didn't want to change it and mess with people's schedules. So, so he started as a method to periodically get together and share innovation best practices. And that was in 2014. And then it quickly, by 2015, moved to every Friday. We were doing this Friday Coffee Talk. So here's a pie chart that used to have labels of who attends. I took all that off, but the cool thing about the chart is there's a lot of slices, right? So this is from CAT, people from all over. You might guess that the biggest piece of the pie is like the engineers at the tech center, but people from all over will attend, from the world too. Plenty of people from Europe do it. Over 3,000 people on the mailing list at their request. I've added 140 people this year, and that just somebody sends me an email. Hey, I heard about this. Add me to the company time. On average, we get 150 to 200 people on. So I chart here. Don't read them, but this is the last few years of who the guests are. And in 2015 and 2014, I couldn't cram it all on the slide. And there is somewhere in here the city of Peoria, right? We had Anthony Corso on. We had the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council on once, and we had Distillery Labs on. But most of these, well, almost all of them are external startups. So why do we want to talk to external startups? Because I want people at the big giant, Fortune 50 company where the entrepreneurial spirit can get snuffed out of your body, pretty quickly. Be inspired every week by what these outside small companies are doing. They have a totally different way of thinking, different way of attacking problems. And, I want to see that in action. It also exposes them to things that we're not doing today, to cutting edge technology. How are they doing their business model? How do they think? What is their ways of thinking? So with that, right, with that knowledge shared, sometimes would lead to further inquiries from somebody at CAT who's like, hey, I want to talk to them some more, right? And most of the time it doesn't, but that's okay, right? The fact that, some of the time it does is fine. And even if it's not followed up on, the fact that we got to see what they had makes you inspired, right? Think about, well, how could we do something, equally cool, right? And so it promotes the innovation culture. Now, when you explain to your management, that I'm putting, 2 hours a week in on this, they're like, what are we getting back for your 2 hours? It's very, very hard to put a number on, right? But of course, I do have a slide of all the different companies that we followed up with and what happened afterwards. So they get it, right? Nobody's told me to stop. So we're keeping the culture alive. And so I'm just going to show you from this past year, some of the ones that stuck out to me that I thought were neat. And I just grabbed their website. This company, Airyball, they've got a sensor about that big, right? That it smells what is smelling, right? It smells what stinks or it smells good or whatever. On that little sensor are all these different little network of cells, and in every one of these cells is a different gizmo. I don't know what to call it. I forgot. But there's a little thing that the smell particles, right? It'll attach to that, and think of like a QR code. The map that it makes by that receptor and that receptor and that receptor and that one being lit up, that is the smell of a rose, right? And a different sequence, that's the smell of oil. And they've run thousands and thousands and thousands of smells through their sensor, and they can, with near 100% accuracy, tell you what that smell is.
Yeah, I can see some real interesting use cases for that.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
even, manufacturing, right?
Yes.
Or in a process of farming from a quality perspective. We
For
get to the end of the line and say, does it smell right?
does this?
You
I
know?
mean, and
Food,
who would have thought that you can tell something's wrong by the smell? I mean,
Yeah.
and a sniffer that's like a dog nose, right? It's like
Yeah.
1,000 times more sensitive than a human nose. So this one was great, and they, they're continuing to refine it, and so great one. One of my favorites from this past year. This company is Mesodyne, and this is going to sound crazy, but they actually burn fuel like propane or something to light up a filament, make something glow, and then there's a cell photovoltaic that transmits light to, which then converts to electricity. And you may think to yourself, why don't you just burn the fuel and turn it into power without making something glow and making another conversion, right? Of fuel to light to then solar electricity, like that doesn't make any sense. It actually does. And their tagline here, 10x better than a battery. And this is only in places where weight is of a paramount importance. So they can make like a drone in the sky fly for 10 times longer.
Wow.
By not burning the fuel, but by using electricity. So it's kind of mind blowing. And when they explained it all and showed us, yes, it was mind blowing. And so, yeah, go check it out. It's really, really neat. It doesn't scale up hugely well, right? It has to be something lightweight. So you guys might have heard of this one, right? DSS Innovations, right? A lot of nodding heads, graphene energy harvesting, very, very cool. One of my favorites from the year. This one was one of my favorites because Dallara makes those cars, right? For the Indy circuit. They build the chassis and then the teams put their engine in it. But we had them on, and what's sort of visible here, this right here, the windshield, right? They, in their talk, they explained how they prototyped and then designed and made this impact resistant windshield. And then the very next week, there was a race and somebody lost a tire, and they had this in the cockpit footage of the tire going boing, boing, clonking into that thing and then bouncing off. And I'm yelling, that's the thing that they explained the engineering of that, right? And I sent an email to the guy, Stefano, that hey, I saw your new cockpit roll cage thing, in action at the race. He was equally excited. I think we're only two people excited about that. Really neat. So
I imagine the driver,
yeah, he was happy too. And I believe they actually had to take the car off the track because it's like when something hits, you now have to make sure that there's no crack that was created because of the next tire it's going to fail, right? But again, in another race like 10 years ago, I had an old car, could have been killed. So, and this is right over, they're in Indianapolis. So it was really cool. Boston Metal is another cool company that, I mean, look at their headline. Imagine steel production with no CO2 emissions. And they've got it figured out, at least, and they demonstrated it, with a video, but, we're talking the big pot with the boiling steel in it. And they shove the poker into the hole and then the steel gushes out. If you've ever seen a video of them, making steel, and they're doing it all with no CO2. So really neat. And these guys are going to be zillionaires someday, I'm sure. Okay, so those are, I mean, out of the 42 for this year, just a little flavor of who we get. And the really neat thing is that they agree to do it. These companies, they don't have to do it. We don't pay them. It's just them sharing, what they've got. And obviously with these folks, Cat buys a lot of steel, right? And we want to lower our carbon footprint. So there may be some follow-up here with them someday when they scale up and they're out of the lab, which is why we had them on. But all these other companies, there's not a whole lot in it for them. But the fact that they're willing to share, I mean, my hat is off to them, that people are willing to do that. So part of why I'm willing to come here and talk about it, right? Because, people do it for the Friday coffee talks. And there's one tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Who's the company?
Tomorrow's guest is Ecotone Renewables, I think is their name. I have it on the slide. Nope, I don't. Yeah, it's a renewable biodigester, right? Where they're taking waste and turning it into fuel, basically. So, and there's a lot of those that people have tried that, and we've had a lot of, I won't call them repeats, but people trying to do the same thing, and that's fine because you get to see how other people are tackling the same problem. So we've had a lot of 3D printing companies on. I'm printing metal, I'm printing circuit boards, I'm printing metal, but I'm doing it 10 times faster than those guys. Whatever. Can
you say where they're based out of, or do we need to tune in tomorrow?
The renewables. I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I did book them. I can't remember off the top of my head where they're from, but extra kudos to the West Coast.
Anything else right now?
It is 5 a.m. there when they do it, and one of our perennial participants is from Caterpillar subsidiary Solar Turbines. It's 5 a.m. and he shows up every Friday. So. Not asking them to do anything that my friend in San Diego was doing as well. Okay, so with that, moving on to innovation methodologies. So while Friday Coffee, gets people inspired and makes them want to do things, and we used to have the Kickbox program to let them, do their own projects. Well, what if we have a team that the company wants to tackle it, kind of in the traditional way, right? Put together a team of 10 people and have them go solve some problem. So I was fortunate enough to go through every one of these with the mentors or the
Probably at some
professors
point.
from Stanford or from Berkeley or
I think
wherever.
we had one yesterday.
I've got Kickbox. I put it right in there with them. So all these methodologies, when you do them all, you wind up recognizing the things where they've got some commonality, right? Which for the money, because Adobe's free, right? There's the most bang for the buck there, and you're getting a lot of what these other folks would charge, whatever Stanford charges you at their business school to take a class. So big bucks. But if you distill it all down, this is basically what they have people do. You do your first pass, like what is the idea? How is this a business, right? You kind of sketch it out. Once you have the idea sketched out and how you think it's a business, you go and bounce that off customers who you think are going to be their customers. What does the market analysis look like? And this doesn't have to be fancy, just rudimentary, but can I get over that very first hurdle of, it seems plausible, right, in the market. Then you go validate the problem by talking to customers. And I mentioned that with the Kickbox program. You talk to a lot of people, get their feedback on your idea. Then go make a prototype. So how can I talk to people without even a prototype to show them? You just talk, right? You sketch it out on a napkin, whatever. Then you make your minimalist prototype, cardboard and tape, as I like to say, and then you go talk to more customers, or outsiders. And once you have that thing, and you go and sort of trying to validate if I made this and it doesn't work yet, but it kind of looks legit, semi-legit, right? Paper mache and duct tape and everything. If the customer still says, yeah, this seems decent, right? It makes sense. Validate that go-to-market concept again. Then and only then do you go and try to develop a high-level prototype, something that actually works. Spend some real money. So it's kind of like Kickbox would get you all the way to that bullet there, the high-level simulation. I mean, usually you can't build that for the $1,000. That's going to take more than that. But if you have a good sort of confidence that your idea has merit, right, and you can explain to people, I showed the customers this prototype, and then I showed them this and this, and it was the smoke and mirrors prototype. But based off of that, I got this great feedback. Now I think it's worth spending some money on to make a working prototype. Then you build the working kind of high level prototype, go out and talk to customers some more, right? And if they like it even more, okay, now it's ready for real investment. Taking it from being a prototype that kind of works to being kind of Gen 1 of whatever the thing is. It could be software, it could be a physical thing, whatever. It's ready for real investment.
I have a quick question here. So did you have to do this first before they got the Kickbox money?
No, well, in the Kickbox program, we take them through this whole thing, right? You get the card day one.
Oh, okay.
Right? And Kickbox will get you past kind of that minimalist prototype generally, right? People can usually make a working, prototype or something to demonstrate. Well, maybe working is too strong of a word, but something to demonstrate for less than 1,000. And that's where they spend that 160 on average. And with that money, they had something to show people that got them the feedback they needed to say, I'm going to put more of my own time into this, or I'm not. Right? If you're not willing to put your own time into it, okay, your project's done.
So did that hoist one spend 160?
They might have maxed it out. Yeah, they might have been one of them was maxed it out. I don't quite remember. Another one bought a solar panel and demonstrated with great precision the difference between stationary and pivoting, right, to follow the sun, and then had a variation because the sun is there, but in the wintertime it's there, right? So it was not just a single axis, but a dual axis tracker. And his innovation was it was automatic going daily, but then had this adjuster that you just walk by and you give it like one crank. So over the months, right, that the sun is gradually shifting in the sky, that was enough. You don't just spend all the money on a whole nother motor and an actuator and gears and everything to move the solar panel that much a day, right? Because that's all you're changing it on a daily basis to keep track with the seasons. So it's like a dual axis semi whatever. So he made that, right? And bought all the stuff, for less than $1,000. By the way, Cat sells solar panels in case anybody needs them. We can issue the whole system.
Not wearing a shirt.
All right, so you get rid of the market risk, and then you feel better about spending money on, on the technical part, technical risk. Okay, all right, so any more questions on this before I move to my closing slide? Then we get into more Q&A. So, all right, so I think if you ever looked at like what the Brave Launch does and all these other kind of accelerators, they all follow something kind of similar to this. You have to validate the problem's real, validate that your solution has any merit, right, has legs to it, and then refine, always talking more and more and more customers. The Berkeley professor says you got to talk to 100 customers That was their goal. Like, you don't have 100, you're dirt, right? You have to hit that metric, which you start to hear the same thing over and over and over if you talk to a lot of people. And if that's good, that's great, because you're getting more and more confidence that you're on the right track.
And just to be clear, talking to customers, 100 customers, it's not, this is before they have a paying customer.
Yeah.
This is just potential.
Pure kind of research
Yeah.
mode, right?
And most of that done without talk about the product. You're not selling
Yeah,
product. You're
that's
looking at
right.
what's their solution. So you're working to disprove your.
Yes. Am I wrong? Does my idea stink? Please tell me that it does, because I can cut it and move on to the next thing.
Yes.
All right. So some closing thoughts. So if you ever want to do brainstorming, which that's sort of a catch-all term, but yet getting people together to talk about an idea or a problem and try to think of ideas. What we have found is you bring in outsiders. And outsiders doesn't mean somebody from outside academy, but typically you've got a problem to solve, so you get the people around the table, and it's the people that are working on that problem. It's the insiders, right? It's the usual suspects. You've got to balance that out with just as many people from outside your team, outside from your area, from left field, right? You bring them in, and it never fails that those outsiders come up with the new ideas. Kind of the insiders are tapped out, right? They've been working on this. They have their way of thinking. Not to say they're incapable of fresh ideas, but the new people come in, they ask the dumb questions. They come up with an analogous situation where, well, I had a problem that was not like this in any way, but this reminds me of that, and this is what we did. So had a mining brainstorming session, and I told them we were doing this. We're bringing in the outsiders, and they thought I was crazy. And what wound up happening, we split the people up into groups, and the insiders wound up only being there to explain the situation, right? And the outsiders did all the talking, and the insiders just answered questions. And afterward, one of the guys said, "You told me this was going to work, and I didn't believe you. And dang it, you were right. You made those outsiders, really brought in, all the outside the box thing." So that's number one. It's very hard to do something you haven't always done. That's a truism as far as I'm concerned. A cat, if you have a new idea for an existing product line, easy, right? I mean, relatively. You say something like, imagine a few years ago saying we should do solar panels. No, we do diesel gensets. We don't do solar panels, and so but now we're there, right? We do full microgrids and everything. That's a hard sell to the old school diesel people that we need to get with the times. So you bring something today, it's something we don't do today. You get chilly reception too. So with that in mind, when people come to you wherever you might work with an idea that's something we haven't always done, check yourself, right? That I'm not rejecting things out of hand, because we don't do that here. So anyway, that's one of my things I like to do. And then if you're trying to encourage innovation in a company, you have to strike a balance between hype from the top and low-key grassroots support. If you do too much from the top, people will default to thinking, oh, this is the flavor of the month, it's a buzzword. As soon as that person's gone from that role, this will all die. This will just fall by the wayside. On the other hand, they have to support what you're trying to do. So if people from the top support the grassroots efforts, it'll slowly bubble up, right? People will understand, okay, there is a culture here. It does have support, but they're not trying to dictate it and make it a buzzword and that sort of thing. So there's a balance, and if you hit it right, it'll pay off for you. Even though if you ask people to prove it, you gotta sort of open your mind a little bit and think of something maybe besides, what's the balance sheet on that? Like, it's going to pay off eventually, or in ways that are hard to sort of put a number to.
Have you seen a sequence to that, or an approach that gives better success than another as far as striking that balance?
if you have people available to help run a team, so everybody is kind of had a whole Six Sigma era, right? Where we had master black belts and the black belts ran projects and the master black belts coached the black belts. That provided an avenue, a mechanism to get almost anything done. So we're going to make that a Six Sigma project. There'll be a leader and there'll be a team and the team will go work it. If you have that structure, only now I'm going to say we've got some people that are trained in this kind of innovation methodologies, which is akin to, you know, sort of like Six Sigma a little bit. If that is just available as a resource and if people want to use it, they can. To me, that makes it a huge difference, right? That I need help or I want to try this. Oh, and there's somebody who can help me, right? Having that available, you'd be shocked at how many times people will contact that team and say, help me with my problem. Lots and lots of times.
Does that give you more of the low grassroots support?
That's the balance, right? That's the balance, right? We've got resources available, techniques available, mentors available. And if you want to use it, you can. If you don't, fine. But a great track record of success of those teams going and doing something, and they kind of follow this process. A lot of talking to customers. And that's hard to do in a big company because the customers are like, only certain people can talk to the customer, right? So getting permission and then setting up those interviews is hard.
It's a great segue to my question, which is, have you experienced from a corporate perspective, for lack of a better word, an immune response in terms of innovation, you know, because the corporate sort of
Antibodies?
yes. Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
I have a word for it. Yes. The antibodies are, we haven't, my phrase, we haven't always done that, therefore we cannot, right? That's
How do you get around that?
you have to have support from someone, right? To overcome that. And the greatest way to get support is to run one of the low dollar, you know, kind of low key projects, talk to customers, prove it, take the data, and then say, this is what we investigated and who we talked to, and this is what we found. So if you can prove it for very little money, that gets you a long way towards overcoming antibodies.
I have a question. What if you have a service and not a product per se? So if you,
That's half of what we do.
okay,
Works
so
great
it
for services.
translates good in both sides.
Yes.
Have you thought about packaging coffee to give to the coffee talk speakers?
I thought about
Packaging coffee to give to the coffee.
sending them
talks.
coffee, like a little gift box.
Yeah, because
I've
was-
never thought of that.
Well, I'm kidding, facetious, but I was one of your coffee talk speakers. I thought that's what.
You were one of our coffee talk speakers?
Central Illinois Living Laboratory.
Yes.
Oh, see, it's all online. I don't actually meet the people or see them if they don't turn their camera on. So, all right, meet you in person.
There's a
Like Kip McCoy was here earlier. And
he's
one of
on
our
here right
presenters.
now.
Yeah.
It could just look like a bag of coffee and have a Caterpillar logo on it. And I would sit down on my desk and I bet you the other 400 that have done so would do likewise.
Hey, I'm all about great ideas, and that is a good idea.
So Steve has a question. Steve, you want to ask your question, Steve?
Sure. The culture drives what actually gets accomplished within an organization. And truly to have true innovation, you need a culture that believes, you know, that there is a need to change and that there is some driving factors like technology is exponential, that climate change is real, and so on. Without those beliefs and assumptions, there will not truly be change. You might, you know, melt the top of the ice cap, but you know, the beliefs and the assumptions, the antibodies will just raise up again. And so, do you believe that, you know, let's say, has the correct culture and, foundational beliefs and assumptions for true innovation to happen?
Do I believe that we have that?
Yes.
We have lots of antibodies. And that's why we have to continually promote the culture. And the Friday Coffee Talks, again, started by a visionary at CAT back in 2014. Is the longest running kind of innovation promotion activity that we've got, right? And we keep it alive to try to, show people, right, that CAT has sort of the spirit and try to overcome sort of the resistance, if you will. So you can.
It's a community that really has these beliefs, and it's kind of a culture within the organization, grassroots.
There's over 3,000 people now that are in that community. And I want to pull some stats. I don't know who to talk to do it, but as far as Yammer, right? CAT's got Yammer pages for everything. Every team's got a Yammer page. I think the Friday Coffee Yammer page probably gets consistently kind of like high views and page views, and people see it because we record the coffee talks and post it there. And if you scroll down, you see how many people have seen it, right? Hundreds and thousands of people have seen it. So I even had somebody at my first CAT in-person meeting in a long time was yesterday, and she mentioned that she's on the Yammer page. And I said, "Are you on the invite to the meeting?" "Well, no, I'm just on the Yammer community." Like, well, I'm going to add you to the meeting now because she's just getting them and watching them later. Like, you can tune in live,
Ask a question.
Yeah.
Tazio, of the 3,000 that are part of that active community, and then
The other 97,000.
97,000. Do you have a feel for the regular participants at what level throughout the corporation or throughout the enterprise they may be? Are you?
They're all over.
towards-
Yeah, no, they're.
Towards the C-suite?
I don't think anybody from, maybe one or two people from the top might join, but
But you're creating members for-
it's a big cross section. Yeah, huge cross.
Follow-up question. I'm on that, so I'm really thankful for that. But what are the pathways for others who are not part of CAT to engage? Is that possible?
Yeah,
What does
so-
that look like?
So the non-CAT people that are in on it are past presenters. So you've got the link because you were a presenter, and that's basically who's from outside CAT is still on. A lot of dealer people have heard about it and asked to be on, which is, they're in the firewall, so to speak. They've got the login and everything, so that's fine. To open it up to like the world, right?
Not the world, just Peoria.
No, but I would love to do that. That would be one of those things where sort of the underground spirit would quickly run into the professionals, that would maybe ruin it. So,
Okay, questions online?
There was, actually, yes. Andrew, did you want to share your thoughts? Yeah, I'll just read. Andrew says, "Thanks, Tazio. This was a wonderful presentation on innovation. Excellent. I will certainly want to attend the next one and participate. Good research and work for both you and community."
Any other clarifications or questions about Kickbox or?
I got one last one.
Yeah, go ahead.
When did you start doing this together with Steve?
Steve, I was Steve's backup guy, right?
From 14?
From when he started, but about maybe episode 75. I call them episodes. Is where I took over.
So then my question to you is really, if yourself today in 2021 could give advice to your old self from like way before, not necessarily at the start of it, what would you say? Because we have business owners here from all across the entire spectrum. What kind of advice would you share with them?
I would say, don't quit. I mean, meaning that you keep it going, don't, if you have a low attendance or, you feel like this is too much hassle or it's too hard, don't quit and ask for help. And, Steve Pierce, he's to this day sends me great ideas of people to have on as guests. I mean, what a great guy, right? He's keeping it going. And Shannon, who's here, has sent a lot of great guest ideas. So, if they're interesting, if they're doing something cool and disruptive, put them on the schedule. We got 42 dates to fill in a year, and always happy to have people on.
So how do people get on?
They email me. Or somebody sends me their email and says, hey, talk to this person. Or they send an email to me and that person and say, hey, you people should get together.
Awesome. Another comment from Phil here. He says, great job and very interesting. I hope to make it to a meetup in person in near future.
One question. Have you seen this process used in social engineering? So to speak?
My mind's going back to the Kickbox program because people, there was no restriction on any idea they wanted to bring in, right? And there were people who had ideas that were right in that kind of social engineering or some space like that. One of them, they were recording podcasts basically, and they would literally go. This was their idea. Like their Kickbox idea was to go around and interview people in the company and package what they were talking about into a podcast program and then sort of making it available for download. Total grassroots. No corporate mandate, whatever. And they used the money to go and make this little kit with microphones, with like nice microphones, and a recorder, and I think they got some software to do a little editing, but it was a homegrown podcast, and the point of it was to tell us a story to inspire others for what various topics. That was it. That was their idea, and they went out and did it. And, haven't checked lately, but I mean they were doing it for months.
It's funny that you give us this anecdote because that's the business I'm in, and that's exactly why I asked the question.
And that was not a setup. Right?
That was beautiful. Thank you.
We had another guy that bought a plant tower, then grew lettuce and stuff in it, and put it in the lobby of the building, where he worked, and it was to cleanse the air and look nice. It was really cool looking, like a very tall potted plant. And at a certain point, he would go and cut all the greenery off and baggie it up and set it on a table. It said free take, spinach and whatever he was growing. I mean, good job. It was, it's a great project.
One of those in my house.
Do you have one? Yeah, vertical
Well,
farm.
I have it. Vertical.
I'm thinking we need a whole bunch of those and to pump in some exhaust, some CO2 from a running engine, and make it grow. CO2 greenhouse.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll help you get people.
We'd figure it out.
Terry, did you want to share your comment? I guess I'll just read it. Yeah. So Terry Lewis says, Steve and Tazio, congrats on work well done. You've left a legacy to be proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, Tazio, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Tazio. You guys, thank you for coming. There's more food, so help yourself. right? Who to take notes? Chris actually.
Yeah, so thank you, Chris, for the food tonight.
Well, you're welcome. It was not me. Thank you, Aaron. Huh? Oh, yeah. I made the boxes, came in and everything.
Brewed the beer.
So I don't know if you see the chat. You on the chat still? Are you on the Zoom?
I'm still on the Zoom.
So look at